All across much of western Oklahoma, the economic health of many small towns gets diagnosed every June. That's when the combines start rolling and Oklahoma's wheat harvest begins. This year, though, Mother Nature wasn't kind, and farmers are facing the smallest harvest in more than a half a century. Here's our Keith Smith.
Roger Fisher on a road no farmer likes to go down, looking at losses in a year filled with potholes.
My failure rate this year is about 2/3 of the crop's lost totally. Of that I'm cutting, it's going to be about a 50% loss.
It's an all too familiar forecast. The wheat just does not look as good as it should across the state. Some experts believe this year's crop could be the smallest in 5 decades. Oklahoma Wheat Commission's Executive Director, Mike Schulte.
It's a completely different story than last year. Last year, we were fortunate to have come out of a bumper crop situation. Producers this year have just been plagued by many different things. We had a severe drought all winter from the time wheat was planted in the 3rd week of September until April.
Damaged by drought, followed by a freeze.
Farmers are so subjected to the weather and the climate. It's a subjective business. We can't control the weather or any of these external factors.
The U.S. Department of Agriculture estimating the wheat harvest will be half of what it was last year, leading to losses that could top $500 million. At Cassidy Grain Company, President Mike Cassidy keeps an eye on commodity prices.
I bet we don't get in 5% of what we got in last year.
Just a year ago, you would have seen a line of trucks that stretched for blocks.
And this is the typical scene in Frederick this time of year.
Today, the facility in Frederick sits empty.
Well, I guess the story this year is there's not a story because there's not any bushels. Tillman County probably has the highest abandonment rate of planted acres in the state, possibly. And there's just not much going on. I suspect we'll harvest less than 10% of what was planted. It's devastating to the grain industry, and not only here in Tillman County, but probably across the state.
To manually thresh it out.
Fisher says he barely has enough to make a crop. Last year's harvest will keep him in business, coupled with his insurance.
Many of us insure our crops now. We have insurance available if you want to purchase the insurance. It's very costly, but it's a form of risk management that we use now. It would be very, very difficult financially to survive this type of environment without insurance. And there are those who don't elect to. This is not required.
Not all is lost. And while Fisher finds row after row of wheat that's all but ruined,
some of these heads are standing straight.
another one of his wheat fields has fared much better.
Yeah, it shows you something about the resiliency of wheat, how well it's adapted to the Great Plains.
And it is going to be a field-by-field basis. You know, hopefully when we get into central Oklahoma, we do have some fields that do look better. A lot of it is a field-by-field study, but it is going to be a difficult year for producers.
One of the things you learn as an agriculturist, as a farmer rancher, is that you don't overreact. You don't get too high when times are good, and you don't get too low when times are difficult.
There are already plans for next year. It's a we're in this together type of attitude.
And we always join the farmer in having high hopes and high expectations, and that's why we're in this business, to look forward.
A way of looking at the long haul and part of the history of farming.
We don't get too excited if our income is doubled in 1 year from a good crop, as well as we don't get too disappointed if our income is 10% of normal in a bad year.
Holding out hope that the wheat crop will turn into a bump in the long road through life, waiting to see what's on the horizon.
We have no thoughts of giving up at all, you know. It's not in the makeup of a farmer to give up.